Well, let's go ahead and get started, everyone. I'm pretty sure there's quite a few people on and more to come. So first, let me welcome you to this session on standards, sponsored by PDES Inc. And most of you probably know that's a consortium that's focused on life cycle technical standards. I think we all know why we've got a little bit different look and feel to GPDIS this year rather than the face-to-face meeting. But I will tell you that I think the planning team has done a really good job in trying to pull together some meaningful set of sessions in this virtual environment that we have now to kind of further where GPDIS is going. It's probably more important today than it has been in the pre-COVID environment that we've got. It's a crazy time for us. GPDIS, for those that don't know, was formed in the late 2000s, and it basically brought together two conferences that focused on integration and exchange of data. And it's certainly in the topical wheelhouse of what we're going to talk about here in our presentation later. The theme of GPDIS for 2020, you see, is the great race of the digital transformation. And I believe certainly how the building blocks around interoperability and transformation, enabling the industry's journey toward this digital world, is certainly a key component of what we're going to be talking about as we go forward. And so, God willing, mark down on your calendars GPDIS for 2021, September 13th and 17th in Scottsdale, Arizona. We certainly hope we're going to be back to some kind of a normalcy by then. I'm going to move my slide ahead. Okay, so I would be remiss if I didn't certainly thank the sponsors that we have for this year's event, Interoperability 3D and TransMagic, and also highlight the GPDIS 2020 partners, Boeing and SimData, Elysium, Northrop Grumman, Parker, and PDES Inc. And before I go further, let me mention that any questions that you have, we'll have to take those through the chat window. And so go ahead and feel free to submit those, and we all will be seeing those, and we can address them then a little bit later during the 90-minute session. And if we run out of time and can't get them all, we're going to try and respond to the attendees after the session occurs. So we'll give that a shot, make sure that works. So the topic for today is standards impacting business performance, and I've kind of highlighted a tagline under that, which I personally am going to talk a little bit more about. It's improving efficiency and effectiveness through the use of these standards. So today we've got three presenters. Myself, as the General Manager of PDES Inc. and a retired Director of Advanced Manufacturing Technology and Engineering at Rockwell Collins. Then Mr. Brandon Sapp, who's the lead for the Boeing strategy for data standards and interoperability. And then Mr. Phil Sprayer, the Executive Director of the 3D PDF Consortium. So first, let me take a few minutes to talk about a case study from my experience at Rockwell Collins, and then turn it over to my colleagues, as I mentioned. Late in 2004, a group of industry leaders came together and met in Dallas to discuss what they could work on jointly in a pre-competitive environment and leverage our discretionary funds. And what came out of that meeting was the industrial definition of the model-based enterprise and how it fits within the digital enterprise. But the even more important item for this discussion is the underpinning. You can see in that pyramidal picture, the underpinning to MBE of standards themselves. Now, we had a long discussion, I recall, back in the day, and talking about standards, and we all knew that it took way too much time, and we didn't always get what we needed in the standard information model to provide our industrial needs. So we said that it was very important for people from these companies and others that were interested in that to try and eliminate those problems by putting a bit more resource into the problem solving, in terms of accelerating standard development and for their usage itself. So in the late 2000s, after that meeting had occurred, we took what we learned there and we launched a lean thinking evaluation at Rockwell Collins for the entire operation. And within that team, the Advanced Manufacturing Technology and Engineering group that I led was responsible for the evaluation of efficiency and effectiveness measured by unplanned operational costs. And this focused on what we've called in the industry, certainly, cost of nonconformance, made up of things like scrap and rework and engineering change orders, warranty costs, and problems associated with interoperability and communications, which kind of hits the topic we're talking about today. We found that industrial studies had shown that 15 to 20% of sales was lost as associated with those particular areas of non-planned work. And unfortunately, Rockwell Collins wasn't an exception to that. So you can imagine that the total was a fairly high number. So after looking at the cost associated with cost of nonconformance from our accounting system, which is really an evaluation of activity-based costing, it led us to believe that much of the work was driven, much was driven by the fact that we had a lack of interoperability, both in terms of operations in Rockwell Collins and within the supply chain. The problem was obvious. So the lack of interoperability introduced a lot of remodeling in the system that a supply chain member had or people at Rockwell Collins. And so when you did any kind of a remodeling, you opened up an opportunity for costly errors that would not show up until downstream. So within that context, Rockwell Collins targeted about 25% of the cost of nonconformance. And you can imagine, again, it was a big number to start with, and 25% of a big number, but still pretty large. So in reviewing those findings, I can recall briefing our senior management at Rockwell, including the CEO, and explaining to them that the savings we were talking about, since it was unplanned, fell right to the bottom line, and it could be used in discretionary investment or return to the stockholder. Now, this strategy made use of multiple resources within the company to do collaborative work without having to change systems or deal with the training associated with that. That became a very large deal. So the other thing I guess I would mention that the modeling errors, even though they were apparent within Rockwell Collins, the modeling errors that occurred out in the supply chain were really more impactful to us in terms of having to change designs and change parameters and change communications we had with our suppliers. So that was a bigger issue, even though the one internally was certainly large. Whoops, I'm sorry, I'm not back yet. So in addition to the internal design resources I was talking about, the supply chain was not disrupted when we used kind of a common standard to talk with them about and have them use within their system. It made it much easier for them. And we clearly looked at strategy as we were trying to figure out a solution here. well, why don't we just require one particular system to use and not have to go through this? We should, well, the problem is if it's your system, that was fine. If it wasn't your system, you had to acquire hardware, and also be able to train. So it became kind of onerous to do. So the standard system, the standard solution that we had talked about seemed to make a lot more sense. We found it very costly in terms of training, certainly. We finalized on the interoperability solution with common data format, which was supported by our activity-based costing, as I mentioned. And it also left us with one of the needs to actively engage in the development of standards. So with our industry peers, and also it gave us the opportunity to leverage our scarce R&D dollars. We could do it all by ourselves, but it cost us 4 to 5 times to do that. So an opportunity in the collaborative environment was certainly good for us and good for our peers as well. So in conclusion, in my remarks, I would say that I've often been asked the question in various settings how we developed a return on investment for such a complicated problem. And even though not being able to share the specific cost data, the normalized discussion of the technique and the process and whatnot fits most everybody's bill of material. So I'd say that was the important component. And so as we transition here in the discussion from my case study that I presented, you're going to hear a little bit more in terms of some specifics. So hopefully that gives you a glimpse of one strategy that can help address the value and the why standards fits in a business environment like ours. So again, I'll remind you to chat questions to us, and we can address those at the end of the session or after the session. So now let me go ahead and transition to Brandon Sapp to address the difficulty in implementing standards and the framework that we believe will be helpful in doing so. Greg, if you can, why don't you change the presenter, if you would, for me, please?
All right, thanks, Jack. Let me go ahead and share the desktop and the presentation. Okay, so considering that our theme for this conference was the digital transformation, I think it's appropriate to talk about what it will take for us to fully achieve that transformation. And in many of my discussions with organizations that have tried this, it wasn't successful. And so I tried to understand why. Well, there's plenty of successful stories, as Jack talked about, but in the ones that wasn't successful, I was really interested in why. Sorry. So there is a framework that we can use that will really help us resolve many of those reasons why. And those reasons, again, they was because they didn't understand the intended use of the standard. They didn't have it properly implemented within their business structure. They didn't have tools or understand how the tools really supported those standards. And so that all resulted in wasted resources. And so what I'm going to talk about today is a framework and a methodology that we've used and many others are using to be successful. There are two standards that is available in the industry, and they're ISO standards, and see them listed on the screen there, that provide us a framework and a reference model and methodology for going about this methodology. It's focused on assessing the current situation, finding the weaknesses, and then ways to improve. They're made for organizations, and it is really focused, again, on the convergence of information technology into the processes of production and operation. The The assessment system is in four key areas, 4 key domains. You first start with your business processes, your capabilities that is of interest to your organization, that you really need that interoperability. From there, you work down into your information needs and your requirements for that data, and then the tool chains that you need to create, consume the information, and then your industry readiness or your supplier base and their ability to communicate with you, receive it, and give it back to you. So most companies have a capability. They understand what their business stream is, and they have a really detailed capability map. If not, there's maps that are out of the box available, on the internet and other places. But those key capabilities of people, process, data, tools is where you start the process. Mapping out those business scenarios that drive the interoperability of your data. There's 3 examples here on the screen where an information is distilled down to its atomic level to understand what information is needed in that model to facilitate that process. Simply saying I'm just going to exchange a CAD model or a model is not good enough. You have to get down into the weeds to understand what information in that model is driving that business flow. If you don't understand how your data is used in your process, you won't be successful. There is plenty of standards to use. We talk about it all the time. You take your pick. If you don't like that standard, a new one will be created. But there are key standards that are that the industries have made position statements on, that these are the key ones that are going to drive our information exchange. The 10303 suite of standards have been that standard, that golden standard for a long time now. It started out with just CAD data, and it has grown into a complete life cycle suite of standards that we can use for our business. Understanding the data and mapping it to the right standard, identifying those right data structures will help you be successful. If you pick the wrong standard, if it's not designed for that purpose, then that will lead problems to implementation and problems in your supply chain receiving it and understanding it. So making that right decision is key up front. And then the interoperability, the forums can help with the implementation. That's that third piece of the framework, your tool chains that will be able to create and consume that information. CACS-IF has been around for a long time, but it's not by itself now. We have the electrical wire harness implementer forum, and there are others that you're going to hear about from the next speaker. Those interoperability forums are a key component. Just selecting the standard and saying, all right, software company X says they support it, I'm good to go, has not been the case. Every implementation is different. Every implementation is different. I'll say that again. You cannot guarantee that company X or organization X implementation is the same as someone else's just because they say they support a standard. Getting engaged in the interoperability forums will help you understand the level of implementations with those benchmarks. You can understand the recommended practices for how the data is supposed to be exchanged between the implementations. And something new that's going on in the interoperability forums is the addition of a user group. The CACS-IF has a new user group that was formed last year that's made up of industry organizations, Boeing, Airbus, Gulfstream, others are part of it. Their job is to prioritize the capabilities that we need in the implementation. And those priorities are established, their use cases are defined, test models are created, and coordination with the implementers for those use cases is what's driving the work statement in the next test round. So you've got to get engaged in the forums if you want to have a solid implementation. So then the last phase is just to aggregate and understand your readiness as an organization. How well does the standard support my needs for my use cases? What's my internal, and this is notional data, this is not real data, it's just a sample for how you can assess each one of those areas, understand what your current situation is, find the weaknesses, and identify ways to improve. So what's going on now? We're going through the process of identifying the next set of capabilities. Those capabilities will be delivered via updates to standards and test rounds and the interoperability forums. Again, we're focused on the capability that the industry needs, not just updates to a standard. It's the full suite of capabilities that we need. We're looking at new and enhancements, new capabilities and enhancements to existing ones for many of our key MBE buzzwords, digital twins, digital threads. We have a platform that we're using to convey examples of these capabilities. It's a fictitious airplane that we're calling the MBE demonstrator. We're maturing that and collecting requirements now for the next editions of these key standards. So get on board now and get your requirements in and take advantage of the capabilities that we're developing. So I think that's all I have. So what I'll do is I'll pass it to Phil, who will be the next presenter.
My nightmare. Okay. All right, so we'll talk a little about 3D PDF and what we're doing and why we're a part of this today. The consortium last year, we did a survey of an online survey on our website about 3D PDF and to see how people used it and what they liked about it, a bunch of different things. We had about 200 participants, which is not a huge amount, but it is certainly gave us a bunch of interesting information. And so we asked them first what kind of use cases they had, and we split them out into a bunch of different ones. But the ones that I highlighted here in green are the ones where we had more than 50% of the participants responded that they were the ones, that these were the reasons, their use cases for that. And viewing and drawing with manufacturing, or MBD, were very high use cases for that. Then we asked, another one of the questions that we asked was, what do you like about PDF? And certainly it's easy to share, and it's easy to view, it's easy to use, and then model views. And when you talk about model views, when people say they like model views, what they're really saying is they like having PMI, because the PMI really is associated with each one of those model views as well. And so we began to think about that, and it's like PDF, like people like to use it for MBD, and it's easy to use, and it's easy to view, and it has a bunch of different manufacturing information in it. And so by itself, PDF really can stand alone. But when you combine it with other standards, when you think about, hey, what standards might there be that could use the ability to be easy to share and easy to view and other things, then there's some real natural associations that you can make. And one of those is definitely with STEP. And so we're going to talk a lot this morning about what PDF and STEP are doing together. PDF is also, it really is a delivery mechanism for these model-based enterprises. MIL Standard 31000B has a large 3D PDF component in it in terms of being able to specify deliverables in terms of PDF. Boeing actually uses it in a number of different ways, such as delivery of and access to their co-production partners. Certainly, you can deliver 3D data to any customers that you have, and then onto the suppliers and onto the shop floor. So it really becomes a great format for delivering all your technical data across your enterprise wherever it's necessary. The reason PDF works like that, is well suited for all that, is because PDF is actually it's different than maybe perhaps STEP and other standards, and then PDF is more like HTML. It is a bunch of different standards that are collected together and can be used together in a document format. And so when I talk about PDF, I talk about our standard stack. And so in the middle of the standard stack is our base standard, and that's PDF, and that's ISO 32002. And all the PDF standards are based upon this. Now underneath that, we have some reference standards as well. And those are standards that are normative references in terms of our PDF standards. That are building blocks to that. And some of those that are interesting are the U3D standard, PRC, and those are both 3D standards for 3D data. XMP, which is a metadata format. XFDF, which is a forms data, which allows you to exchange measurement, markup data, comments, those types of things easily. And then ECMAScript, and ECMAScript for PDF specifically. And that allows that ECMAScript document is ECMAScript for PDF, and it specifies those ECMAScript extensions that you need in order to interact with a PDF file. So inside PDF, you have a rich ECMAScript or JavaScript environment that you can actually script all the interactivity. So those are all of our reference standards. And on top of that, we have these derived standards, and those are ones that are based on PDF, but we subset those to make those specific for an industry. So the first one's PDF-A for archiving. We have PDF-E for engineering. And PDF-E for engineering is predominantly a 2D format. So its use case is for drawings and not for 3D data. And I believe that starting this next year, we're going to update that to be based on PDF 2.0. But today, it is drawings, predominantly a standard for drawings. We have PDF raster for raster images, and we have PDF UA for structured accessibility. And the other thing that's interesting about PDF UA is it's definitely an accessible format, but it provides an underlying set of data descriptors and structure that allow you to easily structure PDF files so that you can take it and perhaps translate that to HTML or derive HTML files from that. So it's a very useful standard as well. So those are all the types of formats that we have, standards that we have inside of PDF. The PDF, we also need to extend it often. And so we're working on a bunch of extensions for it now. And the idea behind these extensions is that we can actually extend the standard before we have to publish a new standard. So PDF 2.0 is our current standard for PDF, but we're going to add some extensions to that, and then later we're going to take all these extensions and we're going to take those together and create PDF 3.0. This allows us to do it in small pieces so that you can go ahead and implement and use these new extensions before waiting for the entire PDF 3.0. The first one of those is we're adding STEP to it. As I said, STEP is a great format. It's used in tons of different industrial and manufacturing applications today. It has a lot of really important data in it, and it's a very nice neutral format. But it's not always easy to visualize. It's not always easy to exchange. And we think that PDF and STEP together can help to solve those problems. So as part of, when we add the STEP 3D data to as our extension, we add the STEP AP242 to our reference standards as well. We're making improvements to the digital signatures and improvements to our encryption, hashing, and into some of our link handling, so you can have non-rectangular regions on your screen and link to those. So what we want to do in terms of the PDF world is we want to take these rich standards such as STEP, and we want to wrap those inside of PDF so that you get all these other advantages of PDF. So you get the rich digital signature capabilities, the encryption capabilities, the measurement, the markup, and all those other types of things associated with PDF. You can apply those in a step-based environment. And by being able to do that and work directly with the STEP data, we can reduce the cost and return on investment that you have when you use your STEP standard. You're not going to have to retranslate that into a different file format. So as I mentioned, we have 3 formats, U3D, PRC, and now we're adding 242. And what we found in our survey was that when we asked people what they used in addition to 3D PDF, #1 most used format was STEP. And when you took all the different STEP types together, they made up a very large portion of people were using STEP in addition to PDF. So we decided to look first at adding STEP to the PDF format because it definitely is one of the most used. We looked specifically at adding STEP AP242 because AP242 has capabilities that make it really attractive in terms of PDF. One of those things is you have a tessellated version of the tessellated data model that can be included in a STEP AP242. It has the PMI structures. It has a whole bunch of other data that we think it makes it really incredibly relevant when you talk about it in terms of PDF. So our very first project was then to add STEP AP242 to PDF. And if you do that, you raise your efficiency and you can lower your cost of sharing your 3D because you no longer have to translate your 3D data to another format like PRC or U3D. You no longer have to validate that. You save file space and size and memory because you have a smaller file because you don't have 2 representations of it in the same data file. So all those things combine to reduce the cost and the risk of using PDF when you transmit a STEP file. Now, as I mentioned, the way we're doing that is first thing we're doing is we're writing a technical specification. That's an extension. And what a technical specification is not, it's a different type of format, of standard. It's a standard that you can use for work that's under technical development or that there will be an immediate future agreement on putting it in the international standard. So that's exactly the case that we have here. We have the standard that works being currently under technical development. We're writing the standard, but we don't think it's going to go ahead and be put into the standard until a later date when we do a PDF 3.0. So we're addressing it today as a technical standard. And then in order to test that and to validate STEP inside of PDF, we have started up a 3D PDF Interoperability Forum. And as Brandon mentioned before, the Interoperability Forum is going to be part of this MBXIF, the Model-Based Interoperability, Model-Based Exchange Interoperability Forum. And we have 2 groups. One that's the user group, and the user group is made up of industrial end users such as Boeing and Lockheed and Raytheon, and they are going to be the ones who are going to drive all of our requirements. So we're taking the use cases from the user group, they're going to define that, they're going to prioritize that, they're going to give us a set of requirements, and they're going to do all those, they're going to define how we test this thing. And then we have an implementer group that's made up of a bunch of software vendors, and the software vendors take the use cases and the requirements from the user group, and we're going to test that. Our first test round we're going to do is we're going to simply create new PDF files, PDF 2.0 files with STEP data in them, and we're going to begin to test those. And the idea is that as part of this, as part of the testing process, we're going to write some recommended practices or best practices for that and give feedback into the standards community. So we're going to make sure that the standards that you're using are well tested and work in real world cases. And that's our goal with this GPDIS Implementer Forum. We're starting up the Implementer Forum now. As a matter of fact, tomorrow is our first meeting of our user group. And then next week, we're going to start the Implementer group. We're going to test, as I said, we're going to build these PDF 2.0 files with step data in them, and we're going to do the testing of it. We expect that testing to be done in Q2, around May of next year's time frame. So we should be able to start publishing the results of that and be able to show how you can use STEP and PDF together around that time frame. And what's next for us then? We think that this is a good model to use for perhaps other formats. We want to make sure that we can encapsulate as many useful formats inside of PDF and make it as valuable as possible in a model-based definition. And I was just talking to some people just before this about we're looking at doing GLTF as the next format. It's a high-performance, web-based AR/VR 3D visualization format. And it works really well, we think, with PDES because it's JSON-based, so it's very JavaScript-heavy. And we think that's going to work very well inside the PDF processors that have JavaScript, that have implemented JavaScript for interactivity inside of PDF. So we're going to begin kicking that off. We've started that at the TC level, at the ISO level, and we expect that work to continue into next year. As we move forward with these, we're also going to look at how we put GLTF and STEP together inside of a PDF so you can have an optimized visualization data along with your precise BREP data or your precise manufacturing data that's in your STEP file. So we think that the way of the future for PDF and manufacturing is for us to take a look at other standards, to encapsulate those standards inside of PDF for visualization and ease of use and ease of sharing, and give people a really nice document-based environment that you can easily exchange 3D information, manufacturing information with anybody, anytime, anywhere. So that concludes the information from me this morning. If you want to find out more, you can download. We have a publication called PDF and Manufacturing. It's on our website. You can get to that at 3dpfconsortium.org. Or I also put a link inside the chat window this morning where you can download it. It has a number of different 3D PDFs in it, so it's very nice. If you open it, this is it here. You'll see that there's an attachment icon there, and inside of this this document, you're going to find 4 different 3D PDFs from members of the consortium. If you want to take a look at 3D PDF and see how it works for yourself. So I recommend that you take the time to download that. And if anybody's interested in the work that we're doing between STEP and PDF and perhaps GLTF and PDF here in the future, feel free to contact us as well and see how you can become part of the Interoperability Forum and perhaps help us with that work as we move forward. All right, then.
Bill, this is Jack. There's about a couple of questions for you.
All right.
So will PDF support STEP application protocols other than 242?
I don't know the exact answer to that. What I do know, we picked 242 because it's the first path at that, and we want to take a look and make sure that 242 works and that we can solve any issues we have with that. We're open to putting other formats, other application protocols into PDF and doing that level of work. But our first step is going to be the AP242 as our kind of our minimum viable product. And if that's successful, then we can certainly add more or investigate adding more as we move forward.
Okay. Another one is, will the users be able to support, be able to export the STEP data stored in a PDF file?
That's a great question. You should be able to do that. That's going to be implementation dependent, right? So that just depends upon what what reader you use to view that data. But it certainly is possible in the context of the PDF file. Or you can simply write, it's a very easy process to find that data inside of a PDF file and extract that as well programmatically. So I expect that there will be ways of doing that certainly inside this PDF 2.0. And we'll know for sure here as we get through this PDF implementer form, begin testing all those capabilities.
And then lastly, will PDF readers like Adobe work with the PDF step files?
That's another good question. So Adobe is part of the 3D PDF Interoperability Forum. They're part of the consortium. They've agreed to participate in the Interoperability Forum. And we expect them to, we will be using the Adobe Reader for all of our tests. Adobe, I can't speak for Adobe and their product plans, and they don't talk to me about their product plans either. But what I can say is they've been involved in this process from the beginning. They're involved in the testing of the process, the testing of it as well. And I know they're very interested in 3D inside of PDF. They have a couple of different new projects that have, new products, excuse me, that they've released this last year for 3D in terms of and I know they're looking very much at e-commerce and other types of markets. So my expectation is that they will support that, but I just can't speak for them. But I do know that we'll be testing that again in our PDF implementer form as we move forward.
Okay. Thanks, Phil. By the way, I'm not sure if everybody missed it. I may have. Maybe I'm the only one. When you were muted, when you were starting your session, you mentioned about the alignment between PDES and 3D PDF.
Yeah.
Can you just make a snippet comment about that?
Yeah, thanks, Jack. I did, and I was muted when I was talking about that. My apologies. Yeah, because of the synergy that we see between PDF and STEP and some of the overlap in our membership, we're excited that this year the 3PDF Consortium is merging with PDES Inc. And so we will be a part of PDES Inc. moving forward, and we will be working with the PDES Inc. Membership in making all these PDF and STEP project formats and standards and projects successful with the PDES Inc. Membership. So we're very excited for that, and we think that there's going to be some great things to come in the upcoming months.
Very good, very good. I can say from a PDES Inc. standpoint, we're also excited about that.
Awesome.
Brandon, did you have any questions that you need to address?
No, I didn't have any come in.
Okay. I had one. It's kind of a hard one to answer, but how hard was it to get the greater resolution we needed when we were doing the analysis of Rockwell Collins? Well, it was kind of two parts to that. You had to be willing to make some changes in your engineering change order process so you could identify specific drivers. So when you pulled the cost information out of the accounting system, you could add it up and have it in the right bucket. So that required a little bit of a process change, and frankly, probably the harder part than the practical part of doing that was associated with those doing the engineering changes themselves and having to worry about what was causing the change and things of that nature. So it was almost more of a personnel issue than it was a practical issue, but it wasn't easy, certainly, but you had to have it to get the right answer. So, does anybody else on the line have a question that they want to put on the chat window? If not, I'm going to mention as people are thinking about that, you see the slide up on the screen there. Please be aware of the next session on October 29, talking about the digital thread. Peter Bialo from SimData is going to lead that session, and it should certainly be of interest. to all as well, and that'll be from 2 to 3:30 Eastern Time on Thursday of this week. So I see no other questions, so I guess at this point we can adjourn the session. Thanks to all who attended. Thanks to my colleagues for presenting, and thank you, Greg, for helping out making sure this worked right.
All right, thanks.